Hey there, Saki here from Saki Tech, and in today's video we're going to discover some amazing things. So you now own the new and shiny Titan, the Samsung Galaxy Note 8. And you're certainly wondering about all the capabilities of the new dual camera setup of your smartphone. In this video, I'm going to teach you every tip, trick, and feature of this dual camera. As usual, it's going to be a Saki Tech style video. That means you get an in-depth, fully detailed video. So let's dive in and discover everything. And really quickly, make sure to smash that thumbs up button right now. And if you do use Twitter and Instagram, follow me on both at Saki Tech Online. Now, before I jump into the details, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that the Samsung Galaxy Note 8 has two cameras. There's a primary camera that will be used most of the time. It is 12 megapixels with an aperture of f1.7, and then there's a secondary camera with a telephoto lens which is also 12 megapixels but with an aperture of f2.4. This telephoto lens is designed for zooming into objects, and that's exactly what the specialty of this secondary camera is. It can perform 2 times optical zoom, and it is also designed for a very specific ability. An ability where you can focus on a primary subject with crystal clear clarity, making it stand out while the background goes into a creamy blur, which is known as the bokeh effect. Alright, so let's dive in and figure all this out. Now, before I move into anything else though, I do want to make a distinction between that primary camera and the secondary camera I talked about. The first time you launch your camera, it's going to be using the primary camera, which, like I said, you're going to be using most of the time to snapshots on the go. But if you want to use that secondary telephoto camera, and if you want to utilize the zoom function, the 2 times optical zoom function, all you do is press this button that says X2. So if you press that, it's going to zoom in on the subject. So right now, the Galaxy Note 8 has physically switched into using that secondary camera. It is zoomed in optically 2 times. And if you press it one more time, it's going to zoom out and it's going to switch back to the primary camera. That's one way to use the secondary camera, by zooming in. The other way to use the primary camera is the live focus mode. If you tap that, again, it's going to switch into the secondary camera, but this time it's going to allow you to focus in on one subject while trying to blur out the background. So let me just show you exactly what I'm talking about. So we are currently in the primary camera mode, and as you can see, I have a lens sitting right over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the live focus mode and show you what it means to have the main subject in a crisp and clear focus, and the main subject in this instance is the lens, and how we can have the background blur out, which is known as the bokeh effect. So let's focus on the camera, tap on live focus. That's going to activate the secondary camera, so it's going to zoom in on the subject. And then I tap on this again to zoom in on it. And as you can see, the background is blurred out, but the camera is in crisp and clear focus. Let me take a picture, and I'll show you that picture on the actual screen. So look at how we are actually focused on the lens, and everything is blurred out, so the primary focus is on that lens. It's a really nice and cool effect. But that is basically the reason we have this secondary camera, to do these fantastic things. I can also tweak how much background blur I want. So I can go like that. As you can see, the background blur lessens, or I can go all the way up and the background blur gets stronger. Just imagine doing these things with real people. You can take beautiful portrait shots, or you can take pictures of anything that you like. Again, the point is to have a primary focus on this subject and the background blurs out. Alright, so let's move on. Alright, so the next tip I'm going to talk about really quickly before I dive into all the other settings that are hiding right over here. Again, I'm going to show you everything over here. Okay, let's go back for a minute. Let me just talk about all the interfaces that you're seeing on the screen here. There's a couple things you can do. The coolest thing you can do is you can use the entire screen as a viewfinder simply by tapping this button over here. So if I tap this guy, it's just going to expand everything, and it's going to look much nicer. Now, just for the demonstration, I'm going to keep it like this because it allows me to better see all the controls, and I'm sure you can see them better as well. And of course, this button here is the button that allows you to switch between the rear camera and the front camera. So if you tap the button, it's going to switch over. Now it's the front camera. Tap it again, it's the rear camera. You can also flick on the screen like that. That's going to switch you to the front. And if you do it one more time, it's going to switch you to the rear camera. So let me just quickly get out of the live focus mode over here, because it's just a little bit distraction over there. And the other things that we're looking at here is we have the flash. If you tap that, you're going to be able to set the flash to turn on, turn off, or of course automatic. And those are some of the basics. And of course, if you take a picture, you'll see a quick preview right here in that small circle. You can always tap that and it's going to go into that picture. So if you want to, you can inspect that picture. All right, now let's go into the settings really quick. And I'm going to show you some of my favorite features really quickly before I go and look at everything else. The first thing I want to talk about is what's right here is the tracking autofocus. Now this is actually fantastic, especially if you're doing a video recording of a moving object. So as long as this thing is enabled, here's what happens. So let's say I go back to the camera over here, and let me just zoom into this really quick, make it easy for a minute. And let me just tap on the phone here. Now, as you can see, the tracking autofocus has been enabled for that phone. So when I move that phone around, the tracker is going to actually follow it, and it's going to make sure that the focus remains on that black phone just because I tapped into it. Again, let me move it a little bit more so you can see how it works. As you can see, it will not lose focus of that primary subject that you tapped onto. Now this is great if you're recording a video of your pet. Maybe you're recording a sports game, you want to keep the focus on one particular player. You get the idea. So this is great for moving objects, and you can make sure that the focus remains on that one tracked object. When you're done and you want to disable it, you simply tap back on it and the auto tracking focus disappears. All right, let's go back into the settings. I'm going to show you one more thing. All the way at the bottom, there's something called the floating camera button. If you enable the floating camera button and you go back into the camera, you'll see that now there's a button just floating on the screen. You can take this guy and you can put it anywhere that you want on the screen. This button does the same thing that this button does. So if I take a picture with this, I can also take a picture with this. The only thing is, this is so much more convenient because you can put it anywhere you want, even at the bottom of the screen. So if you're holding your phone like that, you would just press that and it takes a picture. Absolutely fantastic. Now let me go back into the settings, go all the way down, disable that because it looks distracting right now. And the other thing is you can use the volume keys for specific functions you can program to work the way you want them to work. So the volume keys are right here. Right now, if I press one of these guys, if I go back out there and press it, it will take a picture because that's what I programmed it to do. If I go back into settings, again, go all the way down, I can tap on this thing. I can use it to record video. I can use them to zoom, or I can use them to actually change the system volume, which is what they're there for in the first place. But like I said, you can reprogram them to anything that you want. So if you do zoom, and if I go back out to the camera, I can now zoom in and zoom out with the volume down key. Not bad at all. All right, so let's go back in there. I like to keep it at the photo setting, so let's just keep at the photo. And the other thing here is the shutter sound really quickly. So if you don't want the phone to make a sound when you take a picture, you want to disable that. So now you can take pictures silently. There could be a lot of crazy reasons why you would want to do that, but it's an option here. Okay, so if you want the shutter sound, which is a nice feedback, you can keep it on. But if you want to be stealthy, you can actually turn it off. So now when I go back here and I take a picture, there's no sound. So let's go back into the settings. Just two more things I want to show you here really quickly. All the way down again. Over here you have the quick launch option. Basically, make sure this is enabled because this allows you to pull the camera out from any screen, even if your phone is turned, simply by pressing the power button twice very quickly. So if I was outside, and let's say that the phone is turned off, all I have to do is reach over for the power button, just tap it quickly, and that quickly launches for camera, and you can quickly take a picture and move on. So this way you never really miss a shot. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is if you go into the settings, all the way at the bottom, again, you see something called a voice control. So basically, you can take pictures by saying things like smile, cheese, capture, or shoot. So if you say any of those while your camera is active, it's going to work. Or if you want to record a video, you can just say record video. So if you want to do any of those things, make sure this thing is enabled. Just remember, if you enable this, Bixby voice has to be turned off. Okay, so this does not work in conjunction with Bixby voice, because Bixby can do all these things for you anyway. So if I was out here, let me just disable that because it's not going to work right now because I do have Bixby voice enabled. But if I go back out here, hi Bixby, take a picture.
Got it. Picture taken.
So as you can see, you can use Bixby for voice controls, but if you didn't have Bixby voice enabled, then you can use the voice control options from here. Alright, so let's go back into the camera here really quickly. I'm going to show you a couple more things, very important things in fact. If you swipe over to this way, you see what is called the camera modes. You have the automatic mode, you have the professional mode, which is a full manual mode. I'm going to talk about that towards the end of the video. Let me just click it so you can see what it looks like. As you can see, it looks much more advanced. You have all these focal points, and then you have all these manual controls on the side, which is things like manual focus, white balance, ISO settings, shutter speed, and all that good stuff. I'll come back to this towards the end of the video. And notice that you have a couple more things over here. You can even pick things like the metering mode and all that good stuff. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll come back to it. Let's go back to the standard settings. So anyway, let's go back over here. From here, you can choose all kinds of different options. So let's say that you were taking a photo of food in a restaurant, you would pick the food option. That's going to make sure it optimizes the photo for taking pictures of food. And if I go back over here, again, you can do slow motion video here. That's going to be the video mode. Go back here, you have the hyperlapse mode. You have the sports mode, so you can take pictures of moving objects very easily. And one more thing, of course, you're looking at all these modes and you might be getting confused. You may be thinking to yourself, oh my God, what is all this stuff? I don't have the time to go into every single one of them and show you exactly what they do. But what you could do is if you swipe over, you can press this button right here and tap on information. And what that's going to do is it's going to break down and give you a description of every single mode. So it looks like the auto mode lets your phone do all the work. This is what most people use. If you go up a little bit, you'll see the professional mode, take control of your pictures, set the exposure, shutter speed, color tone, and ISO sensitivity manually. And again, the same goes with all these other things. So if you go to food mode, it says emphasize the vivid colors in your favorite foods. So make sure that you look at all these things so you can get more information, in-depth information about every single mode here. One more thing you can do, if you click download, it will take you to the store from where you can download even more modes. You can go to the free ones, which I already got, and you can go to the paid ones. There are a couple, well, there's nothing right now, but they'll probably be added soon. But you have all these options. Make sure you download everything so you have the maximum capabilities for your camera. Let me go back. And one more thing, if you, let's say that you are somebody that takes panoramic pictures all the time. Let's say this is a mode you use all the time. What you could do, let me go back to auto, is go over here, right? Tap this button and then choose add shortcut on home screen. And what that's going to do is that's going to add a shortcut, a camera shortcut to the home screen that will take you directly into the mode that you selected. Panorama is selected, tap on that icon, click add shortcut. Just pick the one that you want here. You can actually pick multiple ones, so that's even better. So you can do professional and slow motion. Click done. And then when you go to the home screen, you'll see that you'll have these shortcuts. Let me swipe over one more time. You have the professional mode, panorama mode, and the slow motion mode. Just to give an example, if I tap on panorama, it takes me straight into that panoramic mode. Absolutely fantastic. So let's go back here. And the other thing is you can actually access, if you swipe over to this side, you have the ability to access the filters. So I can add filters, live filters to this thing. This is for the beauty face. And then here you have a bunch of settings, drag effects to reorder them. You can reorder the settings if you wanted to. Let's enable that. Again, these are the settings, effects that you can apply live. So that's one effect, another effect. You can preview them before you take a picture, okay? And that's if you swipe to this side. Now let me go back to the regular one here. All right. And one more thing, you can also access the stickers, and stickers, again, are going to show up on the side. And you have all these different options you can switch from and pick. This is all just fun stuff. But just to give you one example, here's a sticker. If you tap it, it'll add a sticker to the screen. Okay, so you take a picture, it's going to come with that sticker. So tap that, best friend. Take a picture of your best friend. Tap that, it says cheers, whatever, take picture, and this is going to be there. So let me take a picture. Let me exit this mode by tapping the back key. And now if I go back into that camera, you'll see that the cheers shows up right there. Not bad at all. It actually stays right here, so make sure you disable that. So let me go back to the stickers and tap it again. If you tap it, it activates. Tap it again, deactivates. All right, so those are the stickers. All right, so let's go back into the settings, and this time I'm going to talk about some other important things. Just one thing, when you first go into the settings, on the top you'll see the rear camera option. It says rear camera, and these options pertain to the rear camera. And then you have the front camera options, and then if you keep going down you'll see common options. And let's take a look at this. So obviously picture size, if you tap it, you can pick the picture size. You can pick something that's high resolution, or you can pick something that is not high resolution. And if you're a professional photographer, you probably recognize this option. You can save RAW and JPEG files. If you are not a professional, don't worry about that, okay? Anyway, so here you pick the picture size for the rear camera. And normally I would recommend you just keep it at 12 megapixels. That's for the maximum quality for the picture. The lower you go, the lower the resolution becomes, and the picture becomes less sharp and less clear. But that's not that important. The biggest thing actually is the video size. So if you tap on the video size, this is where you pick whether you want to record in 4K or full high definition. So UHD is 4K, the highest resolution you can record on. This records at 30 frames per second. That's QHD. That's a little bit lower than the 4K. But normally this is what we do. That's full HD. That's 1080p at 60 frames per second. This is also full HD, which is 1080p, but this is at 30 frames per second. The difference between this guy and this guy is that this guy is going to give you a smoother video. All right, so you can test that out. Record a video with this mode, like that, and then record a video, oops, go back here, record a video with this mode here, and take a look at the difference. The 60 frames per second is going to be much more smoother. It's just going to look cooler. All right, and then you have all these options where you can pick different modes. Now, one thing to be aware of is, obviously, if you do the 4K recording, you're going to be wasting more space on your storage. If you do full high definition at 60 frames per second, that takes up more space than the full high definition at 30 frames per second. So just keep that in mind. And let's go back out here. We looked at the tracking autofocus. The timer is very simple. You turn the timer for 2 seconds, for example. You go back out here, you take a picture. It's going to do a countdown for 2 seconds before it takes a picture. So that's the timer. Then you have the HDR rich tone. This is high dynamic range. Make sure you can keep that in auto unless you really know what you're doing. Just keep that in auto. It's just going to get you the best possible pictures every single time. And if you scroll down a little bit more, you have the front camera options. Same thing, picture size, maximum 8 megapixels. You can lower it. And then you have the video size. You can actually record in QHD using the front camera. It's not 4K, but it's close to it. And then you have all these other options. Again, the lower the setting, the less space it takes on your phone's storage. Now let's go back out. And then here it says save pictures as previewed, which it doesn't matter. You can disable or enable this. And this one is called the shooting method. All right. So let's tap the shooting method. And again, remember, these are the front camera settings. So for front camera, you have this option called shooting methods. Tap it, and what you could do is, if you're taking a selfie, You can either tap the screen to take the selfie. You have to enable it, of course. This is not going to apply to the rear camera. It's going to be the front camera. Or you can show your palm to the front camera. It's going to take a picture. Or you can tap the heart rate sensor, which is on the back of your phone, right next to the camera, and that's going to take a picture. So there's 3 ways to take pictures with the front-facing camera, which is this camera, okay? And then again, you can set a timer individually for that. You can also do HDR for the front camera. And if you go down over here, you have the option to create a motion photo. If you enable this, and if you take a picture, what the camera does is it records a little video before and after the photo, and then you can preview that. So whatever photo you want to take is going to be taken anyway, but then it's going to take a little clip of video before the photo and after the photo, giving it a live effect. Again, this is something you just want to go ahead and try. Just take a picture with the motion photo enabled. I don't like it. And here we have the grid lines. Tap on that, you can have a grid line. So right now if I go back out here, there's no grid. And if you don't have a grid, sometimes you cannot align your photos properly. So let me go back down, enable that grid. Let's do a 3x3. Go back out. Now you have a 3x3 grid. You can see it better if I put my hand, or I guess you can see it. So there's a grid line here that you can use to align the photo much better. Zoom in on that. Focus on it. So let's go back out here. You have the location tags enabled. If you enable the location tags, every time you take a photo, the camera is going to know exactly where you were. And I mean exactly. It can pinpoint your location, which is great if you want your pictures to be categorized by location later. But remember, if you have the location tags enabled, and if you take a photo of yourself, and then if you send that photo to somebody, they can actually go in and find your exact location. So this is a security concern. If you don't want that, make sure it is disabled by default, but when you won't know that you want to use it, you can go in and you can enable location tags so you can know where you took the photos. And the final thing here is the review pictures. So if I enable this, if I go back to the camera, if I take a picture, let's wait 2 seconds. It takes a picture and then it reviews the picture, all right? And then you can get out of there. So some people like to do that, all right? So settings, I don't like it because I think it's a waste of time. So don't review pictures after you take the pictures. And we already looked at all these things. Now let's go back out. We actually traversed everything here, okay? So you are a master of the camera settings. But let's go back over here. And now I want to talk about the professional mode that a lot of people wonder what it is. Now I did forget something really quickly. Let me go back in here to the settings. I just noticed I skipped over it. Over here it says video stabilization and it's grayed out. If you ever see this grayed out, the reason this is grayed out and not available is because you also have tracking autofocus enabled. So if I disable this guy and go down over here to video stabilization, now I can enable that. Video stabilization is necessary for a very good, well-stabilized video that looks nice and smooth. So make sure whenever you can, this is in fact enabled. Now let's go back into the professional mode. Now just to be clear, I can't just give you a lecture on how to fully manually control the camera because it is in fact an advanced subject. But let me give you an idea. Now if I go into the auto mode, right, and if I take a picture, everything happens in the background automatically. So what happens is the picture gets properly exposed, and proper exposure is the key, all right? For you to have a picture that is not too bright, which means overexposed, or something that is not too dark, which means it is underexposed. You want a well-balanced, properly exposed photo, just like this one that we just took, because it happened automatically. Now, what the manual mode allows you to do is it allows you to override all the settings for professional effects. Now, the things that make the exposure happen are things like the shutter speed of the lens, the ISO value, and the aperture. Now, with this professional mode, you can change those settings. So, for example, I can tap this and I can change the ISO mode up and down. I can go over here and I can change the shutter mode up and down. Now, as you can see, as I decrease the shutter speed, that means the shutter opens so very quickly that no light goes into the camera, then the picture is highly underexposed, so it's going to be dark. But then if I go up here with the shutter speed, if I take it up, if I open the shutter, so now the shutter is going to open slower. It's going to open, stay open, and then close again, as opposed to what I did the first time. As you can see, it is still underexposed, but it's better than before. But the whole point is to actually tweak these settings to get a properly exposed photo. All right? So you can manually control everything that usually happens automatically. Other things you can do is if I tap this over here, you can also add some nice effects. But this one here is the focus. So now I can manually focus in and out of this photo. As you can see, I'm not focused on the phone, but I can manually focus into it. Again, normally, it says MF now, by the way. MF means manual focus. So normally with autofocus, in this mode, you just tap on the screen and it just focuses on whatever you want. With the professional mode, if you go to the manual focus, you have to focus completely individually. Okay, so that's what it means by manual focus, the manual mode. On the top here, you have the white balance. You can change the white balance depending on where you are. You can warm the colors or make it less warm, make them cool. And again, you have a dial, tap it. You can go up and down, as you can see. Okay, you can make it a warm photo. That's a nice effect as well. And that's it. That's basically what the manual mode is. Remember, to get a properly exposed photo, you have to make some adjustments. You have to work with the ISO, the shutter speed. You can do manual focus. You can also change the color balance. All those options are available here. What I would recommend, if you want to master this, go and study these values, the ISO value, the shutter value, the aperture value, okay? And learn how to, and then you can come back here and you can play with them. And that's basically it. So that's the professional mode. It's a highly advanced mode. It requires some additional training, some education that I cannot do here. But I do hope that I was able to steer you in the right direction. And that actually brings us to the end of this camera tutorial. Looks like we have covered just about everything. So that's the end. And I now hope you have a better understanding of your camera's capabilities. Make sure to watch other Note 8 videos that touch on non-camera settings. And of course, make sure to subscribe for more videos to come. Also, if you do use Instagram or Twitter, follow me on both at Saki Tech Online. And finally, don't forget to smash that thumbs up button. Have a fantastic day.